Welcome to the Hannahcast. Hey guys, I've been waiting to do this for a long ass time. I mean a long ass time because, I've always wanted to have a podcast where I just talk about shit, especially involving movies and whatnot, and I want to try to get a co-host. I'm looking for a co-host right now, preferably one of my friends I currently have. But right now, considering I'm already so behind on so many reviews, I figured, why not just review them all here in this episode of the Hannahcast. For the most part, the Hannahcast is going to be reserved for, the biggest movie news of the week, or the movie news during the week that I'm the most interested in. And also some reviews. But, considering I'm already behind on, 7 movies that I was really trying to review, I'm just going to get ahead of some of these. I'm going to try to review The Amazing Spider-Man 2, Spider-Man Far From Home, Spider-Man Homecoming, and all of the Lion King movies. That's the 1994 original, The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride, The Lion King 1.5, and of course the new hyper-realistic CGI remake of The Lion King. So yeah, that's basically how it's going to be. And we're going to start off with The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is considered by many to be the worst Spider-Man movie. Now, if you know me, I didn't like the Andrew not the Andrew Garfield one. I didn't like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movies, and I just felt like they were so ridiculous and they didn't make any kind of sense. And I really loved The Amazing Spider-Man. I thought The Amazing Spider-Man was so good, had such realistic characters. The love interest, Gwen Stacy, played by Emma Stone, I thought was way better than fucking Mary Jane Watson, played by Kirsten Dunst, which, again, I don't have a problem with Kirsten Dunst's performance in those movies, but her character was just the worst, in my opinion. And so we get to The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and I will say this, I think it is a step down from The Amazing Spider-Man, but I still thought this one was decent, honestly. I thought The Amazing Spider-Man 2 had a lot of redeeming qualities, and a lot of those redeeming qualities I thought were enough to recommend the film. I do have a lot of problems with the movie, though. Well, a few problems, at least. For one, I feel like initially the romance is kind of on again, off again. Oh, they're together, then they're not together, then they are together, then they're not together. It's I don't like that. I just love seeing these two be together and just be awesome. I just like that. Don't get me wrong, relationship issues can work, but I don't know if it really worked out well in this film. Again, they don't focus on it a lot. The on again, off again with romance is only done maybe a couple times in the film, and when they get back together and whatnot, that's all cool from there. I will also say another issue I had was, what the fuck were they doing with, Max Dillon? When he turns into Electro, I thought he was pretty cool, but when he's this really weird, geeky, nerdy guy, it's kind of ridiculous in my opinion. I'll give you that. That doesn't really work. And also, while I do like the Green Goblin in this movie, I like the way they designed him. I like the way Dane DeHaan plays him. I wasn't so hot on what they did with him in the story, because he kind of comes out of nowhere, does something, and is just gone. So I'm was there really a point to him being in this movie? Again, I like the Green Goblin himself in this film. I thought he was way better than Willem Dafoe's Green Goblin. But story-wise, he didn't really have a purpose here. They probably could have set him up for The Amazing Spider-Man 2. 3, that's what I meant. But what I will say, some of the stuff I do like in the film. Well, for one, of course, all the performances I felt were really good. Everyone delivered their A-game. Andrew Garfield gives probably his best performance as Spider-Man. Granted, it's only been 2 films, but he's phenomenal in this movie, especially around the end. The visual effects are probably the best in any standalone Spider-Man movie. In a standalone Spider-Man movie, I think The Amazing Spider-Man 2 has the best visual effects out of all of them. The visual effects are so fun, so creative, and they've really come a long way from the garbage CGI of Spider-Man 1 from 2002. I'll also defend this movie a bit. Like, a lot of people were talking about how, oh man, Spider-Man is just doing his quips and whatnot, and he causes a bunch of cop cars to get wrecked. I don't know. Like, I think actually the first 10 minutes of the movie when we actually see Spider-Man is actually on the IGN YouTube channel. And look, go ahead, go and watch that. Every time that cars get wrecked and whatnot, it's not when Spider-Man's doing his quips and whatnot and trying to make jokes. It's honestly when he's off trying to save something else, trying to save someone from being run over, or trying to stop a bunch of explosive chemicals from breaking and blowing up. Really, when you look at that scene, it's not really his quips that cause the wrecks. It's honestly whenever Spider-Man has to do something else that requires his attention that really is kind of important at the moment. So, yeah, there's that. I will also say, once Jamie Foxx becomes Electro, the CGI work on him is really good. Like, wow. Like, you can see, his skin's a bit translucent. Like, you can sort of see through it. The lighting effects are really good. And I love the sort of warbliness of his voice and the music that kind of goes with him. That shit is really, really cool. I'm not the biggest fan of this movie's music, for the most part, because it's just, very generic. It's like, dun, 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 dun. It's very generic. But the actual electro music I thought was really cool. It had sort of this dubstep vibe to it, and I don't know. I just thought it was really, really cool. And honestly, one thing I noticed when I was watching this movie, everyone was talking about how the entire movie was just a setup for the Amazing Spider-Man. I mean, not the Amazing Spider-Man, for the Sinister Six, and honestly, it's only at the end of the film, very on at the end of the film, is when we actually start to see the Sinister Six stuff popping up. Now, granted, I will agree that Green Goblin was rushed, but that was one character, not the entire Sinister Six. And honestly, it's very on at the end of the film when they actually start doing the Sinister Six build-up, and yeah, so it's not even the entire film. It's just that one segment at the end of the film. I'm a little bit mixed on that, because, on one hand, I really do wish we could have seen what that Sinister Six would be like. But at the same time, we finally got, Spider-Man in the MCU, which we're going to talk about pretty soon. And man, it's just been so cool to see Spider-Man in the MCU. We finally got to see him in Infinity War and Endgame. It's as much as I love Andrew Garfield's Spider-Man and what they were trying to do, would I trade that for instead of having Spider-Man in the MCU? Probably not. I really, really love the fact that Spider-Man is in the MCU now. Don't get me wrong, I love Tom Holland, but I personally think Andrew Garfield was a little bit better. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying Tom Holland was bad. He's really, really good. He's great, actually. I will always miss Andrew Garfield, but, if, Spider-Man being recast means we can finally see him in the MCU and fight alongside the Avengers, or in the case of Captain America Civil War, fighting against some Avengers, I'm not gonna lie, I'm glad they did that. But yeah, it is kind of a little bit sad to see where this Amazing Spider-Man universe could have gone, but regardless, that leads into basically what I think of the Amazing Spider-Man 2. I thought it was good. I thought it was a good, solid movie. I definitely have some issues with it. Again, the on-again, off-again romance stuff just kind of got a little tiresome. I wish they could have just been very consistent with the romance. And also, there were some also little issues that I had a problem with. But overall, I felt like a lot of the stuff in The Amazing Spider-Man 2 was very enjoyable. And it's enough to look past the bad stuff, in my opinion. Not everyone feels that way, but that's fine. That's the subjectivity of film. But, yeah, I recommend seeing The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I think it was pretty good. Is it one of the weaker of the good Spider-Man movies, in my opinion? Yeah, but, I mean, I mean, really, like, if you're going, if you're watching me expecting to give, very, agreeable answers with the Spider-Man movies as a whole, you're not gonna find that with me here. I disagree with with a lot of I disagree with people a lot in the Spider-Man movies, with some exceptions. And one of those exceptions, nice segue, is Spider-Man: Homecoming. So yeah, Spider-Man: Homecoming. Like after we saw Spider-Man and Captain America: Civil War, which was such a great moment for the MCU. Like one of the MCU's defining moments was when we finally saw Spider-Man in Civil War. But now we got him in Spider-Man: Homecoming, and as of that movie coming out, like not including Spider-Verse, which came out afterwards, but when Spider-Man: Homecoming came out, it became my second favorite Spider-Man movie. At the time, it was still the Amazing Spider-Man, the first Amazing Spider-Man, but Spider-Man: Homecoming, I feel like, delivered a lot of delivered a lot of the same from Spider-Man, which is, I mean, like, good amounts of the same, but it also brought something really new to Spider-Man, which is basically making it a high school comedy. And oddly enough, the high school scenes are really, really funny. I don't know how much I would buy in a high school, but I mean that's the MCU. It's already really weird, and I can like what's the best way I can describe, like, what's the term I'm looking for? Like I can suspend my disbelief on some of the stuff regarding high school, considering how weird the MCU is. I mean, this is a universe where a raccoon and a tree can talk. So, I mean, the fact that that high school isn't exactly like how high school is, that's not really an issue for me. As long as it doesn't go too ridiculous like Spider-Man from 2002. Luckily, this doesn't do that. It just plays straight for a comedic kind of tone, and not even a cheesy tone, just, actual comedy. Which is, if that was what the first Spider-Man movie was trying to go for, then, I mean, I wish it could, yeah, if the 2002 Spider-Man wanted to go in a more comedic direction, I'd be fine with that. But my main problem with that movie was that it was way too much like a Saturday morning cartoon in all the wrong ways. Whereas with Spider-Man: Homecoming, it, like I said, it was a high school comedy with Spider-Man, and I felt like it really benefited from that. Of course, Tom Holland, I think, is a great Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He's a younger Spider-Man and Peter Parker. He's very funny, very charismatic. And another thing I love about this movie was that at the time, I think it had the best Spider-Man villain yet, which was Michael Keaton as the Vulture. Holy shit. Like, and keep in mind, back then, I didn't expect a lot from MCU villains, because, like, one of my biggest problems with the MCU was that they were kind of dull. They didn't really, like, it's like, like, who remembers the villain from, what was it, Thor: The Dark World? Does anybody remember that villain? Or the villain from Guardians of the Galaxy? Or Iron Man 3? And don't say the Mandarin, because the Mandarin was not the villain of that movie. But, like, so yeah, that's the one thing I was worried about going into Spider-Man: Homecoming, was that because, like, Marvel just usually does not do their villains well. The Vulture was excellent. He was an excellent villain. Like, he had all the right motivations. He had a lot of screen time. He was very funny, very threatening, and yet you could see exactly where he was coming from. You'll have to see the movie. I mean, it's not really a major spoiler. But when you see why he is a villain, it's like, yeah, I can easily understand why someone would become a villain, especially in today's day and age. It's very understandable, and I feel like they did him justice, and it was just really, it was a really, really good villain. Zendaya, I thought, was also really good in the movie. I didn't really think much of Zendaya before this movie, because she's a Disney Channel star, because, like, who remembers where Corey from Corey in the House went, or whatever. I've never even seen Corey in the House. That's how square I am. But Evidently, Zendaya turned out to be like Zac Efron, where it turns out she's actually very talented. Because, like, in Spider-Man Homecoming, she showed off her comedic skills, and I thought she was hilarious in this movie. And, later on that same year in The Greatest Showman, she showed me that she could be a pretty damn good dramatic actress as well. So yeah, Zendaya was great in the movie. I thought like she was a very great comedic foil towards Peter Parker. Uh, like not really a bully, but she sort of just says something mean. It's like, why would you say that? It's like, it's very funny, and I love the interactions between him and her. I also love the interactions between Peter Parker and his friend Ned. Like Ned, oh my god, I love Ned. He is so funny. Um, Another thing I love is what they were doing with Peter Parker and Tony Stark. I mean, a lot of people do have a problem with it, saying it's like Iron Man Jr. or whatever. I still think that they did a very good job in establishing Spider-Man as his own character. And, I mean, and what they were doing with these two, and the fact that, even though, Peter Parker he has the powers of the gods, like he's a very strong character, he is still a kid. He's still very, naive about being a superhero. He's kind of irresponsible. And I kind of like that about this movie. Also, another character I forgot to mention was Flash Thompson. Oh my god. Like, Flash Thompson was so funny in this movie. Like, they did him better. Like, I feel like they did him really well in The Amazing Spider-Man, but with the Flash Thompson in the 2002 Spider-Man, I thought he was a joke. It's like, what kind of bully is this? Because, like, I mean, I don't know if it's because of the times, or hell, I don't even know if this was even going on in the 2000s. I mean, if you were conscious in the early 2000s and you weren't a baby, like, if you actually remember the early 2000s, was it really, at that point, was it really still jocks versus nerds anymore? Like, was it really? Because, like, nowadays, nowadays it's more like nerds versus nerds. And that's what Spider-Man Homecoming did. Like, they turned Flash Thompson into, like, he's still a bully, but he's not really a jock. He's just a nerd he's a nerd who's a dick. And I feel like that's a little bit more identifiable today, and for me a little bit funnier, because it's like, oh wow, yeah, this is exactly how it is. And it's a little bit more relatable to me, because like, a lot of the bullies I went up against in high school were nerds, like me, but they were just douchebags. I mean, fuck, nerds can be such bullies nowadays that, like, you just mentioned Star Wars, and no matter what you say about Star Wars, everyone's gonna be on your asses. And I find that really funny that they did that in Spider-Man Homecoming. Not in terms of Star Wars, but, it's nerds versus even worse nerds. So yeah, I like how they did that. And really, just overall, I just really, really enjoyed Spider-Man Homecoming. I thought it was great. Currently, it's my third favorite Spider-Man movie, right behind The Amazing Spider-Man at number 2 and Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse at number 1. But yeah, definitely see Spider-Man Homecoming if you haven't already. Spider-Man Homecoming was such a great superhero comedy. And it legitimately is a really good Spider-Man movie as well. And again, it's just so cool seeing Spider-Man in the MCU. Which also leads us to the Spider-Man movie that's currently in theaters, which is Spider-Man Far From Home. I'm not going to get too into the plot details of this one because they have some major spoilers in Endgame. But basically, Peter Parker is going on a trip with his classmates to Europe. And apparently S.H.I.E.L.D. gets in contact with him, showing him that there's like these elemental monsters or whatever that are causing a bunch of ruckus. And, like there's a Sandman, there's a water dude, there's a magma dude. It's like all sorts of crazy shit. And they team up with Mysterio to try to stop them. And yeah, everyone's loving this movie. I think it's actually joined the $1 billion club, which is a first for Marvel, because now they have 3 movies in 1 year that made $1 billion. Captain Marvel made $1 billion. Avengers Endgame is now the highest grossing film of all time, beating Avatar. And now we have Spider-Man Far From Home making $1 billion as well, which is insane. Uh, and what I think of Spider-Man Far From Home, I thought it was okay. It was okay good. Um, and honestly, I don't know why I didn't love it more. I don't know why I loved it. I don't know why I didn't love it more, as much as a lot of other people did. But I don't know. Something about the movie just kind of felt like not really grand. And I'm not saying be a big Spider-Man movie, but I mean like I don't know. It just kind of felt like another Marvel movie. Like I probably put this around the same. I probably put this around the same category as movies like I don't know, Ant-Man or Iron Man 3 or whatever. It's just or Guardians of the Galaxy. It's like I liked it, but I didn't love it. I mean, maybe it was a little bit better than okay. I don't know, but overall, like I was a little bit disappointed in it, but I can't understand why. Well, I wasn't. I was disappointed in one thing, and that was what they were doing with Mysterio. Um, and look, I'm not a comic purist, and like you'll see what I mean when you see the film. But they kind of there's something that kind of comes out of nowhere with Mysterio, and I was hoping they wouldn't do this. It's like, oh God, really? But it's just no, they did it, and it's like, ah, shit. Because it's like, ah, I don't know. Again, it just comes out of nowhere. It's just like, what? Now it does lead to a pretty creative scene, and they do give him a bit of screen time, but it's just like, I just didn't feel like what they were doing with Mysterio was earned. If you catch my drift, I just didn't feel like it was very earned. I will say, and like also another issue I had was like when you see the elemental monsters and whatnot. I mean, again, it's just not really that investing because it's just a mindless blob of lava or a mindless blob of water or a mindless blob of sand. It's like, in what way am I supposed to get really invested in this? It's sort of like the whole rock monster villain trope. Have you noticed that a lot of movies or TV shows have like rock monsters as villains? It's just like, why do I give a shit? I don't really give a shit. It's just the same. It's just the same stuff. And that's basically like if it doesn't have a mind of its own, then I can't really get that invested. It's just I don't know. There were some good elements about Spider-Man Far From Home, though. Of course, everyone gives a really good performance. There's some good laughs. Some of the action is pretty creative, especially this one scene. It was just like, whoa, this is weird. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's a really weird scene where like a bunch of shit is happening all at once, and it's like, whoa, this is strange. Like that scene was pretty cool. And I will say, the mid-credit scene, oh my god. The end credit scene, I'm a little bit mixed on, because it's like, what is going on here? But the mid-credit scene, well, for one, it opens the door to something, to like, what are they going to do with Spider-Man in the MCU moving forward? Like, that was really cool. But there's something that appears in the mid-credit scene that I was not expecting, and when it happened, I was like, holy shit. Like, they actually did this? Like, it's so cool. I love it. I'm glad that this is now a thing in the MCU. You'll know what I mean when you see the film, and don't spoil it in the comments. Just tell me overall what you thought of the mid-credits scene, without any spoilers, and, saying, oh man, that thing, it was really cool, and I will know exactly what thing you're talking about. I thought it was so cool. But the end credits scene was very strange because, like, I don't know what was going on during that scene, because because it turns, like, when you watch the end credits scene for Spider-Man Far From Home, you see something that turns out to be something else, but it makes me go, wait, did this happen only in this movie, or was this going on throughout the entire MCU? Because if this was going on throughout the entire MCU, I'm pissed off now. Because it feels very cheap and stupid. But if this was just in this film, it's still kind of on it, but at least it's not as offensive as it would be, like if it were in the entire MCU. You'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. But overall, I was a bit disappointed with Spider-Man Far From Home. I don't think it's as amazing as everyone says it is. I mean, it's all opinions. Like, if you love it, if you think it's great, you're no more right or wrong than me for thinking that. It's just for, like, and again, I like this movie. I thought it was okay good. Like, somewhere around that ballpark, but it wasn't the great film I was hoping it would be, so it's a little bit disappointing, but overall I would recommend seeing Spider-Man Far From Home, especially if you want to see where Spider-Man's going to probably go on further in the MCU, and especially for that mid-credits scene. Like, oh my god, that mid-credits scene was unbelievable. So yeah, there's that. And now let's move over to another subject, and that's the Lion King movies. I have 4 of them to review here, so let's get on with the first Lion King, which was in 1994. We all know the story of the Lion King. It's about this little cub named Simba who, looks up to his dad, Mufasa, who is king of the Pride Lands, and, one day Simba is going to become king of the Pride Lands, and, he has a lot of that kind of responsibility and stuff. And after he faces, like, something he really did not want to face, he goes into exile and, what's the term I'm looking for? Like, he goes to try to, he grows up to try to become, king of the Pride Lands, and, so there's that. Sorry, I need to get a drink. But, yeah, The Lion King, I've always loved it when I was a kid. Everyone says it's like the best animated movie ever made. For me, it's the second best animated movie ever made. For me, it's still the Tigger movie. But I'm not going to argue you if you think it's The Lion King. I mean, The Lion King is a masterpiece of animation. I mean, the opening Circle of Life sequence is like one of the best scenes put in any film. Like, it's jaw-dropping what they were able to do with 2D animation back then. And apparently, this was Disney's B team. Like, their A team was working on Pocahontas, and so they sent their B team to try to do The Lion King, and now everyone hails The Lion King as, like, the greatest achievement in 2D animation. That, when not, like, in just plain 2D animated movies, like, not counting Roger Rabbit, where they're trying to integrate 2D animation with, live action, which is insane how they did that. But with Lion King, in terms of just plain 2D animated movies, this was, I agree that this was probably the greatest achievement in 2D animation. What's not to love about this movie? The main protagonist, Simba, is such a likable character when he's both a cub and an adult. Jonathan Taylor Thomas plays him really well as a cub, and Matthew Broderick actually delivers a really good performance when he's adult Simba. Mufasa has a really great character. Scar is one of the best villains in an animated movie. Nala's a really great love interest. Timon and Pumbaa are pretty good characters. Rafiki's a really, inspirational character and whatnot. Or, what's the term I'm looking for? Like, he's a very, wise character. Even though he sometimes acts silly. Which is what I love about Rafiki. And for me, the Lion King has the best music in any film, both songs and musical score. Like The Lion King, the ending, score alone, where it's like, like that is, oh my god, it's so jaw dropping. It's fantastic. There's also the Stampede music. It's just like, the music in this is just so good, and the songs are so great as well. Like, the best one, in my opinion, is, of course, Circle of Life, but then you got Be Prepared, which is a great villain song. Just Can't Wait to Be King, which is a great, fun song. Hakuna Matata, I liked it when I was a kid. I thought it was a good song when I was a kid, but I'm starting to really like it now as an adult. Can You Feel Love Tonight, I didn't care for it when I was a kid, but I think it's actually a really good romance song. There's probably some other songs I'm forgetting about, but they're all just bangers. They're just amazing songs. And it's a great story about, trying to face your responsibilities, and that it's just such a great, oh god, I love The Lion King so much. It has just great themes about growing up. It's a great coming of age story, The Lion King. It is a fantastic coming of age story. And it has probably the best bookend, like one of the best bookends to any film. If you have not seen The Lion King already, I don't know what to say. I'm not going to spoil it, but what they did with the ending of this film, it's like, that is perfect. Which leads us to our next. Well, actually, first before I move on to Lion King 2, basically what I think of The Lion King, it's one of the best animated films ever made. It's one of the best movies ever made. The Lion King is an absolute perfect masterpiece of animation. It's incredible what they were doing with it. So groundbreaking in terms of in terms of animation. Also, I'll say this about the movie. Here's a little fun fact. When it comes to Timon and Pumbaa, them being in the movie was actually the first technical plot twist I've ever had in any movie. And here's why. Because when I was a very little kid, before I saw The Lion King, I used to watch this show on Toon Disney called Timon and Pumbaa. Now, as you know, Timon and Pumbaa was a spin-off show based on The Lion King that followed the adventures of Timon and Pumbaa. I didn't know that. I didn't know there was a movie called The Lion King when I saw Timon and Pumbaa when I was a little kid. So I was like, "Ooh, this show's funny." And so when I was watching The Lion King, like, it had some funny moments, but it like coming off of this really depressing scene, which is a great scene, by the way. You know, you go through this really depressing scene, like, and as you know, little me was like, "Wow, this is really dramatic." Like, oh, jeez. And then out of nowhere, you hear, "Hee!" It's like Timon and Pumbaa. I'm like, what in the world? Timon and Pumbaa are in this movie? Like, because, like, I had not seen The Lion King before I saw Timon and Pumbaa, so I just didn't know that they were actually going to be in this film. And so, technically, for me, that was the first ever plot twist I've ever had in a movie, which is kind of crazy to think about, but I didn't know they were in the movie, so I guess technically it counts. So, yeah, basically, I love The Lion King so much. It's one of the best movies ever made. I absolutely recommend seeing The Lion King. Which leads us to my next review, which is The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride. This has actually gotten, like, this was probably considered the worst of the Lion King movies. And while I don't think it's as, good as The Lion King, the first one, I actually thought The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride was actually pretty decent. Not as wonderful as I remember it being when I was a kid, but overall I thought it was still a pretty strong story. Of course, The Lion King 2, Simba's Pride follows Simba's daughter, Kiara, as she's going to become the queen of the Pride Lands one day. And apparently there's this other group of lions called the Outlanders, and they basically betrayed, the Pride Lands, and so they've been exiled, and their leader is Zira. And she has her son named Kovu, and, basically, it's a Romeo and Juliet story, sort of. It doesn't, let's just say that Romeo and Juliet and The Lion King 2 end very differently. Well, let's just say that. But, it's still the basic principle of Romeo and Juliet, two opposing sides, but yet a couple of members of those opposing sides are in love, and they try to bring peace amongst those two. And, it's a cliched story, yeah, but I feel like The Lion King 2 does it actually pretty well. For me, what really makes this movie work for me are the characters. Like, they're so likable. Like, of course you have the returning characters like Simba, Timon, Pumbaa, Rafiki, but then you also have, Kiara herself. Like, she's a very likable lead, and I really loved seeing her journey. Kovu is also a really good, conflicted character. Granted, I have no idea where he came from. It's never explained. That's one of the issues I have with the movie, was that there's a lot of things that are never explained. Or at least a couple of things that are never explained. But he's a really good character too. Zira, again, a really good villain. Like, the characters really do, like, for the most part, really do make the movie for me. Like, they really do drive the film. And even the music is really good. Like, for one, the opening song, He Lives in You, oh my god, like, it's not as epic as Circle of Life, but if you're gonna have a song to, follow that up with as your opening scene in a Lion King movie, yeah. Oh yeah, it's a worthy follow-up. It's a worthy successor. It's a really great song, and I'm also really glad they put it in the end credits of the new Lion King, which was a really great little Easter egg. like some of the other songs I really love in the film are "We Are One." Like it's a really nice calming song. "My Lullaby," which is the villain song sung by Zira, is a really good villain song. "Upendi" it's a pretty good song. Although the scene that takes place during that song just comes and goes out of nowhere. Like for me, I feel like the song sequence of "Upendi," it was a bit rushed. How quickly they just zoomed into that song sequence and how quickly it went away. I was like, what? Like, really? Like that was really quick. The Exile song in the film is really really good too. The only song I wasn't really a big fan of was I forget, it's the big romance song that features, Kiara and Kovu. But it really does kind of come across as a kind of like a C grade. Can You Feel Love Tonight? Hell, there's even a lot of imagery in the movie that kind of resembles Can You Feel Love Tonight? It's like, really? So I wasn't so big on that song, but all the other songs I really, really enjoyed. And I will say another issue I have with the movie was that sometimes the animation is a bit sketchy. Like whenever a character's far away, like the lines are really really thick, especially if like there's like a zoom out where how they do 2D animation zoom outs where like they have to draw the characters, but considering they have to draw them smaller than usual so that in the animation they can zoom out, like they expand on that frame. So, and you can kind of tell that the lines are kind of thick during those scenes. That's kind of distracting. But for the most part, I thought this was much better than a lot of the straight to DVD Disney sequels. I thought this was a pretty decent one, in my opinion. So yeah, I do recommend seeing The Lion King 2: Simba's Pride. Now let's get on to the next and final of the straight to DVD Lion King sequels, which is The Lion King 1.5, which I'm guessing, from what I've heard, people didn't like Lion King 2, but they do like Lion King 1.5. And look, that's if you think again, I'm not gonna judge you if you preferred one over the other. Like, again, there's no wrong answers. But man, I really did not like Lion King 1.5. Like, I just really kept asking myself why. Like, why am I watching this? Because it's like, basically, if you don't know what Lion King 1.5 is, it's basically showing, remember the first Lion King? Well, did you know that Timon and Pumbaa were in that movie too? But you just didn't see them, and and all it really is it's just a bunch of forced scenes where they just, scenes from the Lion King where they force in Timon and Pumbaa. Like, for example, in the Stampede scene, they show that Timon and Pumbaa were there too. During the opening Circle of Life scene, they show that, the Timon and Pumbaa were there too. It's like, why? Like, it's just very dull, in my opinion. It's very dull. Again, the characters themselves are still likable. I do like this is the case. Unlike Lion King 2, this is the case where like the characters are still likable, but however, unlike Lion King 2, it's not enough to save the movie. Like, this story is just so dumb. It's just like, again, I'm just like, why am I even bothering with this movie? It's like really? It's really just it's just a series of lame jokes about, how, Timon and Pumbaa were in the first Lion King. It's like, I'm just like, it's just, again, I just don't know how to explain. It's just very dull. Like, apparently we see Timon's mother and his uncle Max, but it's just like, again, why am I watching this? I legitimately, why am I watching this right now? So yeah, I know this review is short, but I just have to come at it pretty straightforward. I just did not like Lion King 1.5. This for me is easily the worst Lion King movie, which leads us to our final review of the night, which is the new 2019 remake of The Lion King, directed by Jon Favreau. I'm not calling it live action because it is absolutely not live action. Because even though everything looks real, like Jon Favreau said that this is an animated movie. It just happens to look realistic. Like the animals are all CGI, the locations are CGI. Literally only one frame of this movie is live action. Not one scene, one shot of the film is live action. And that's it. Everything else was built on a computer, which on a technical standpoint, holy shit. I cannot believe what they were able to do with this film. Like, I've seen a lot of people kind of crapping on the CGI, and I don't know why. Like, I'm like, dudes, this is, at least in my opinion, one of the greatest advancements in CGI history. Like, really think about it. Trying to build this entire world on a computer and making it look as real as it does. And it does look real. There were many parts of it in the movie where I was trying to make myself remember, hey, this is all built on a computer. None of this is real. It's insane. These might actually be the greatest visual effects I've ever seen in any film. Like, just what they were able to do with this film, making an animated movie that looks realistic, that looks photorealistic, and it succeeds in doing that is... Oh my god, that is groundbreaking shit right there. That is some groundbreaking shit. And I cannot wait to see where else they go with this technology. So, overall, what did I think of the movie? I loved it. Yeah, like, it hasn't been getting very good reviews, and even audiences seem to be pretty split on it. But, for me, this new Lion King was nothing short of incredible. Now, some people would try to, are going to try to say, oh, well, it's all, like, the plot points and the characters, like, the only reasons why they work at, like, they don't really count for this movie, like, they only count for the original Lion King because, like, that's something that the original movie made, not this movie, so that's not worth praising in this film. But I'm like, no, it is worth praising because they could have done it badly. And, like, there are some people out there who say that, the plot itself is really good, and that, the story, if you've seen the original Lion King, a lot of the stuff that they do in this film does reflect the original, and they've acknowledged that they thought they did that very well, but they don't count it as a positive towards this movie because it was from the original Lion King, which for me is not a good way to look at films. Because, it's like saying Lord of the Rings wasn't good because all the stuff that was, most of the stuff that was in those movies was already in the books, so you can't count that again, like, as a positive towards Lord of the Rings. I'm like, no, like, what matters was how the film did it, like, how they pulled it off. And yeah, is this new Lion King about 90% almost just like the original? Yeah. But, I mean, if it ain't broke, why try to fix it? Then some people will try to pull up the argument, well, then why do it at all? Well, why not? Because if it's great, then you have another great movie. If it sucks, then you can still watch the original Lion King whenever you want. No one's stopping you. And studios are constantly pulling out new original movies every year, so why not remake The Lion King? I mean, and some people are going to go, well, they're only doing this for, it's just a cash grab. I'm like, well, yeah, this new Lion King is absolutely a cash grab, but that's every film. You don't pour millions of dollars into a movie and not expect to turn out a profit. And don't try to tell me that they don't care about making the movies good, because they absolutely do. Because, a bad movie like Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom can make money. It made over $1 billion, but it would have made more money if it was good. And the exact opposite goes for great movies that flopped, like The Nice Guys or Kubo and the Two Strings. Those movies were critical hits, and yet they were box office disasters. But I'll say this, they would have made less money than they did if they were bad. They made more money than they would have made if those movies were bad. But no, everyone loved The Nice Guys, everyone loved Kubo and the Two Strings, so it made more money. Again, not enough to make them profitable, but it could have been worse. So studios do care about making their movies good, because, greed is good. They want to make as much money as possible. And that's the thing that goes with every single movie ever made. If anyone tries to tell you that a movie is a cash grab, tell them no shit, because you don't spend millions of dollars making a movie and not expect to turn out a profit. Okay? That's insanity. Like, whatever. But back to The Lion King. What did I really love about it? Well, aside from, the plot being really good and the characters being really good, which, yeah, was from the original film, but regardless, I feel like they pulled it off really, really well. Let's talk about some of the new elements, the performances from the actors. I thought they were all across the board spectacular. Donald Glover was a really good Simba. It was nice hearing James Earl Jones back as Mufasa. Beyonce kind of surprised me as to how good she was as Nala. J.D. McCreary and Shaddai Wright Joseph as Nala. Like, J.D. McCreary played young Simba, and Shaddai Wright Young played young Nala. Like, those two kids were really, really good. They were all really good. John Canny as Rafiki was really good. And of course, let's talk about the three standouts of this movie. John Oliver as Zazu, Billy Eichner as Timon, and Seth Rogen as Pumbaa. John Oliver, I'm a big fan of Last Week Tonight, so when I heard that he was going to be Zazu, I was ecstatic, because it's like, yes, I just love how, like, this guy's a really funny comedian. And, man, and Billy Eichner as Timon. Now, I kind of feel bad, because, like, in my Adam Ruins Everything review, I kind of made a joke at the expense of Billy Eichner, because when I first saw Billy on the street on True TV, I thought he came across as a bit of a big douche, but he has grown on me, honestly. He's grown on me. Billy Eichner, I think, is actually pretty talented, and he was really good as Timon. Like, he brought a little bit of a new edge to Timon. Like, he's not as overconfident as the original Timon. Like, he's more of a scaredy meerkat. But he really brought his own to this film. But Seth Rogen as Pumbaa, wow. I wanted this guy to be cast as Pumbaa before he was cast. Like, you can look on my Facebook somewhere, I don't know, where I made like a little fan casting of who I would cast as these characters. Not that they had to stick by my casting choices. Like, they could have gone with any really good actor and I would have been fine with it. But man, I was hoping Seth Rogen would be Pumbaa, and sure enough, they cast him as Pumbaa. I was like, oh yes, this is gonna be great, and it was. Timon and Pumbaa in this movie, I still think the original Lion King is better, but Timon and Pumbaa in this movie I think are actually better than they were in the original. Like, these guys are so laid back and, just cool. Like if you try to hang out with the original Timon and Pumbaa, they would probably get very annoying very fast. But the new Timon and Pumbaa, they honestly feel like you could have a conversation with them. It's like, they're just cool dudes. Like, they're just awesome. Especially for a couple of scenes, like, one of them being The Lion Sleeps Tonight. They do something pretty different with that scene that was from the original movie, and it's really, really cool. Like, it's more of a musical kind of thing, and the ending of the song is so funny. It's so hilarious. Another thing I loved about this movie, were some of the new scenes that they added. The scenes, involving, Scar and Sarabi, who's, Simba's mother. Like, those scenes are really good. And there's also this extended scene with Nala. Again, it's really interesting to watch. And, that new stuff added in the film I thought was pretty good. Actually really good. And also, I will say this. Some other cast members I forgot to mention. The hyenas. They do the hyenas pretty differently in this film. Like, they're not the really stupid comedic relief that they were in the original. Not stupid as in, like, I didn't like them. I mean, like, stupid intelligence-wise. Like, they lacked any kind of cognitive function, basically, which worked for that film. But I was kind of wondering what they were going to do with the hyenas in this new one, because, like, you can't really go overly stupid, because, like, that only works in a cartoon. Like, Ed, like, that, you could only do that in the cartoon. Now in this film, Bonsai and Ed are renamed Kamari and Azizi. Like, Bonsai is Kamari and Ed is Azizi. They changed the name so that they can make them, like, because it's more African, which, I was not concerned about that. Like, that's fine. What were some of the, like, who played Shenzi, Florence Kazumba played Shenzi, and she was intimidating as hell. And not only that, they made sure you knew that she was the leader of those hyenas. She was fantastic. Keegan-Michael Key as Kamari was also really intimidating, but man, Eric Andre as Azizi. For one, I am shocked they even let Eric Andre anywhere near this film. Like, at all. Like, because he is, like, one of the most prolifically offensive comedians out there. And the fact that they let him anywhere near their most beloved property, one of their most beloved properties, is hilarious in of itself. And they're all great in this movie. And again, they go more with the intensity route with the hyenas instead of the comedic route. They do have some comedic moments, but they're mostly supposed to be like straightforward villains. Like, yeah. And they pull it off really well in this film. One criticism that I've been seeing a lot from people is that the animals' expressions, like, they don't express that much. For me, it was not even an issue, because I've seen what happens when movies try to make animals emote in ways that they're not supposed to emote, and it can look very bizarre. So yeah, they don't express much with their faces as much as they do in the original film, but I'd rather have that than make them look weird. I'd much rather have that. And plus, even then, for me anyways, I feel like the performances were able to, like, whatever faces the animals couldn't make, I feel like the actors more than made up for it. Like, when you see young Simba see something really traumatic, his face doesn't say a lot, but J.D. McCreary's performance, his voiceover performance, again, I feel like more than made up for what you couldn't see with the face. Which even then, I don't know why people are complaining about the faces now, because, why, like, how come, nobody complained about the faces when, Charlotte's Web came out, the 2006 live-action one, or The Jungle Book, the one that came out a couple years ago, or Christopher Robin that came out last year, or Babe, and Babe was nominated for Best Picture at the Oscars. Like, nobody complained about those movies and the animals' faces not, expressing much, and yet now, during The Lion King, is when people pull that up? I don't understand that. Like, it's very hypocritical in my opinion. Whatever. But, so yeah, regardless, I feel like, this new Lion King was spectacular. So much so that, I can't believe I'm saying this, Kubo and the Two Strings has now been replaced as my favorite animated movie of the 2010s. Like, now I think it's The Lion King. Yeah, it looks live action, but whatever. No, it's an animated movie. Everything in the movie's animated, so it's an animated movie. For me, there's no question about that. And yes, does this borrow a lot from the original animated film? Yeah, it does do that. But for me, they still did it really well. And, I mean, really, if it ain't broke, if it ain't broke, then why bother fixing it? And again, anybody who says, well, why bother remaking The Lion King at all? I mean, there's no downside to it, really, for me. Like, there's no downside to it. Because even if this were to suck, I still have the original Lion King. It's still, like, one of the best movies ever made. And I can watch it whenever I want. There's no harm in this new Lion King existing. And so, yeah, I absolutely recommend you see The Lion King. I think it is fantastic. This is a very worthy adaptation of the original animated film. The visual effects, I feel like, are outstanding. If there's another movie that beats The Lion King for best visual effects next year's Oscars, like, that better have some game-changing effects, even more game-changing than the ones in The Lion King. So yeah, if you have seen The Lion King, what do you think about it? Tell me down below, all that good stuff and whatnot, but yeah. And I think that's about it, guys. I don't know how long some of the other Hannahcast episodes are going to be, but I wanted to get this one out of the way because I needed to catch up on some reviews I've been really wanting to do. I might do this if I might try, I don't know, let me know if you think that this style of reviews, is good, like you like these kind of reviews where it's just kind of me just sitting back and talking about it in a podcast. I'm probably also gonna, take these segments of reviews, and sort of post them as their each individual review videos. I mean, let me know what you think about this. I'm still gonna try to do the Hannahcast, but let me know if you kind of like this way of me reviewing movies, just laying back and just doing it in a podcast style and getting a bunch at once. So yeah, that concludes this installment of the Hannahcast. I am still searching for a co-host. I'm gonna try to get some artwork here in a bit. So who knows? But yeah, let me know what you think of the Hannahcast. Let me know what you think of all these movies. Tell me down below what you think of them. Thank you so much for watching. Give this video a like. Share the video so that we can get the channel circulated. Don't forget to support my Patreon on my Patreon page. Or if you can't do that, then consider supporting me through my PayPal donation button in the description below. And if you want to see more, click this.